Welcome back into Changing of the Times. I'm your host, Josh Daeche. I'm joined alongside my colleague, a member of the 2013 Northwestern State Demons, Southland champions, and the NCAA tournament team that year, David Ulak. David, we are a week into hoops in the season. There's been a lot of cancellations, despite many bubbles. The Maui Invitational and some of these preseason tournaments are going on. Coaches are scheduling left and right. You know, even though they're taking tons of tests, still COVID continues to play. Actually, is probably the biggest opponent we are still facing as a staff as teams go through. David, so far, 3 preseason teams, the top 10, lost in the opening weekend.
Yep.
Number 4, Virginia, lost to San Francisco 61-60 on Friday, followed by number 3, Villanova, lost in overtime to Virginia Tech 81-73. And number 10, Kentucky, has fallen back-to-back games. First of all to Richmond, and then last night to Kansas in a game I thought they would win. David, what's your first impression overall of the week?
I think it's just great to get back to basketball. I think you see a little bit of inconsistency, game to game with some of these top teams, but maybe to be expected, maybe a little bit of lack of practice, maybe a lot of back-to-back situations. I don't know how much coaches have been able to get with their guys even in preseason, so not so much practice, but when you talk about what goes into August, September, and even bring guys in the summer, I mean, these could be coaches that are still learning their teams more on the fly this year than ever. I think a lot of dynamics that are going to go into it, but for the most part, though, the quality of play, in my opinion, has been relatively high. I mean, these games are competitive. These guys are getting after it. No major injuries that I can think of, which is a major positive. And it's just great to see college basketball, a sport that you and I both love, going at it again.
I agree. David, as we talked about, we want to bring on guests that are integral parts of the game. And today we're fortunate to bring on Texas A&M Corpus Christi assistant coach Mark Dannhoff. Coach Dannhoff's been in coaching for over 28 years with stops at Georgia State, Tulane. He's worked with several guys that have gone on to the pros. In fact, Sam Decker, most notably. He's been with the Islanders 9 years and works for a dear friend of mine, Coach Wilson. Coach Dannhoff, thanks for joining us. How are you doing?
Hey, Josh, David, always a pleasure. Thanks for this opportunity. I was an unexpected call the other day, so I'm excited to be here.
Coach, let's talk about the day-to-day right now. Obviously, you're living through this. How often are you getting tested? And what's the day-to-day protocol like on campus?
Well, right now everybody's kind of taking a break for Thanksgiving, so the campus has changed a little bit than it was prior to Thanksgiving, but we're getting tested 3 times a week, 3 times before every game. In fact, we tested 3 times before the game the other night, and then we tested yesterday before we leave again today for another game. So in terms of exactly how you manage that, I think the biggest adjustment is managing your roster and managing your program. You've got to really take into account all the outside factors that you never really gave a lot of thought about prior to COVID coming into play.
Coach, every state's different. I know in Pennsylvania, I know starting next week we'll be at practice. The players have to wear masks. Are your players and as the staff have to wear masks during practice and during the games?
Yeah, for our staff, we wear a mask during practice and during games. For the players, they wear a mask right up until we start going full. So when they arrival at the gym, they need to have a mask on all the way into the gym. They've got a chair on the borders of the practice facility where that's their chair for their water bottle, their towels, their masks, whatever they need right there. And they have to wear that right up into the beginning of practice. As practice goes on, then it's up to them if they want to keep the mask on or not. We did buy some of those gaiters for them to make it a little easier and to breathe. But most of the guys so far have chosen just to not wear them during practice. But they do a very good job. As soon as practice is over, they put them right back on. As for our games, coaches obviously wear the mask the entire game. The players have to wear them while they're on the bench. When they enter the game, they take them off. And as soon as they come back to the bench, they get a minute to catch their breath, but then they got to put the mask right back on and make sure it's covering the mouth and the nose.
Question about practice, because once again, two different sports. But you read in football, there's all this stuff like contact tracing with certain position groups. So I don't know how college football, the NFL, actually works. But is practice any different than it normally would be in college now with concerns of contact tracing? Or you just could go 5-on-5 or whatever all the time with if someone gets it in the sense that we're all going to be ruled out with contact tracing.
I've heard of a lot of schools doing that, and in fact, I was listening to a radio show the other day talking about one program that's doing nothing 5-on-5 this entire time. It's all 5-on-0 and involves a lot of spacing. For us, we're still going 5-on-5 and we're going live. The things that are different for us is locker room, 5 guys in the locker room at a time, separation and going to the training room. They have set times to go so that it's not all 15, 16 guys in the locker room at one time or in the training room at one time. Mm-hmm. When we circle up, it's a big circle now. It's not one of those small circles around the center circle. It's pretty wide, almost a full court. And usually there's no seating in the gym. Well, now there's seating and it's spread out clear around the entire gym. So I found the one interesting about doing 5-on-5, and it reminded me of St. John's football in Minnesota, that historic football program that wins a ton of games. I think they're Division III. Yep. And the coach they had, I don't think he holds a record for most wins, but they never did contact in practice. They just did no pads the entire week and then went and played on Saturday. So
wow,
I found that interesting. But there's a lot of different changes we got to make. And the other one is when they leave, going back to their apartments or their dorms, whatever you may have, isolating from the rest of the student body.
How difficult is that to manage, Coach? Obviously, I remember it was like when I was in college, Friday nights, Saturday nights, you want to get together with friends, have a good time, interact socially. Obviously, these guys are under a microscope because they are student athletes, and I guess they really have to live up to that. They're inside their own bubble. How difficult is that to manage?
Absolutely. And, it's been a little easier than expected because probably 50% of our kids came back to campus, student body. Most of them stayed home and did virtual classes. But when the student body arrived, your bubble really became more and more important. And the things that so like I told Coach Wilson early on was, you're asking your seniors who are trying to enjoy their senior year, who've been living their college lifestyle a certain way for 3, maybe 4 years, to absolutely change the way they've lived. And then you're asking your new guys, whether they be junior college or high school kids or prep schools, they've been dying to get away from home and to go to a Division I campus because they've heard about how great it is. And now you're asking them to just completely shut it down and not live the life they dreamed of. So it can't be easier for them. But honestly, I'm really proud of our guys. I think our guys have taken it very serious. They know when they go back to the apartments, that's where they stay. They're not allowed to wander the campus, to interact with a lot of the student body, keep their space from everybody. That affects their dating, their social life, the entire deal. So our guys, we've been very fortunate. Our guys have really, placed an importance on it and held each other accountable. So we've been very lucky.
Coach, one of the things that I always enjoyed was training table when I was in coaching. After practice, after before a game, pregame meal. How is that? It sounds so stupid, but that's had to change a lot too, because how many people are you sitting around the same table?
Well, for home games, we don't even go eat anywhere. The food is delivered to their apartments. And
wow.
So they basically take it back to their apartments and eat there. On the road, obviously, you have to have a conference room like normal. Now, the tables are spaced even further than they were before. And there's only 4 guys to a table, instead of maybe 6 or 8, depending on how big the table is. So there's more space. And, it's always buffet style. So you don't go up, serve yourself, go get seconds, all that. For example, in this last game, there's shields up in front of the buffet, and people are serving us instead of with gloves on and masks on, instead of us going up and being in a line, one right after the other, getting our own food, everybody touching the same spoons and utensils and things like that. So a little bit different, but yet similar atmosphere, but it's not the same.
Coach, other things that you guys do, and I know I miss it a lot, was film study. How different is film study? Where you guys, after a game, a pregame, scout, everyone comes in, they sit next to one another,
Yeah.
and they watch film, and the coaches either go through it or they review the previous game. How different is that right now?
Well, absolutely. For the entire team, again, they got to wear their mask and their seat. If they're getting a chance, if it's a longer session, they get their stools, but they're much.
And we know Coach Willis, it's going to be a long session certain days.
Well, certain days it can be a little longer than others, but the stools are spaced much further. It's in the gym, not in the locker room. So there's more. It's not a closed-in environment. And then they wear their mask at that time. Everybody wears their mask, and it becomes that kind of setting. As for position groups, like my guards, we used to be able to meet in my office and watch film. That's not really, if it's one or two of them, that's okay. But when we get up to all of them, all six of them, try to go down to the conference rooms, the athletic conference room, or maybe the locker room because it's only six of us, or out in the gym again, and space out and watch the film together from there, and have really good teaching sessions.
So the next question I'm going to ask is probably it will go into a couple multiple layers here, but recruiting, because how has that changed? There's going to be a couple of different answers. Question will be, how are you evaluating kids? And then the idea that the NCAA now says this year doesn't count for guys, so seniors now could potentially get another free year back. And how are you guys going about that process as far as recruiting high school kids?
Two very constant conversations.
Yeah.
Beginning with our own guys, what seniors may want to come back, and I don't know. We've got 5 of them, and my first thought is that a few of them are ready to move on and want to start. They've been here, they maybe graduated or are about to graduate, and they're ready to maybe go play overseas or whatever level they can play at, or just move on into their, professional careers after that, whether it be a doctor or a businessman or whatever it may be. So that's something that certainly has to be taken into consideration. And you never know if you're going to lose anybody else along the way as well. But it's a constant discussion with us in terms of the number of scholarships you're going to have left, and then what your needs are. And this year, evaluating kids has been very difficult because it's all got to be done by film and conversation with the head coach, the AAU coach, anybody who's maybe got teams that have played against these people. To get everybody's kind of feel, you got to really dig deep. You almost feel like you did this before, but you're digging even deeper, like you're an NBA guy trying to get ready for the draft, and calling even more people than usual to try to find out more and more information. But honestly, the whole deal, I feel really bad for the young men. I feel bad for the seniors, the sophomore, junior college kids, some of those prep kids. It's really there's not going to be enough scholarships for all these kids that are normally there at the end of every year. And it's really going to backlog 2022 as well for those young men. It's going to take a couple of years for things to flatten. Either there's going to be a lot of parity, even more parity down the road, or, the fact that some of these kids can go back to their schools, they've been additional junior college year or whatever, that'll help a little bit. But it's a lot of trust in the high school coaches, the junior college coaches, the people associated with these young men and women. You really have to develop a relationship with them like you would normally, but even well and beyond, because they have to trust you too. They don't get the opportunity to sit down in front of you and get to know you like they would like to know you, and who they want their coach to be. And is the campus really what I want? And does it fit me? And does the program fit me? And do they have my studies? And they don't see any of that. And they got to make one of the biggest decisions in their lives. And they have to trust us, and we have to trust the people we're speaking with as well.
Coach, you've spent a lot of time, you recruit overseas. With obviously basically the restrictions that are in place, how do you sell a kid that's never been to the United States, let alone a kid overseas? Are you guys doing virtual tours? Are you like literally walking around with your iPhone saying, "Yeah, there's the gym over there"? And There's the library.
We've done a little bit of that stuff, but we've had some videos made that are on our websites. They're available to all student athletes or kids who are interested in our program, but they get a chance to see tours of the campus online. They get a chance to visit with us virtually so they can actually see who they're talking to as well. We try to get them on the phone or in some type of virtual conversation with all the coaches, not just maybe the lead recruiter or the head coach, everybody on staff. So everybody gets a feel and they get a feel for us just like we get a feel for them and their families. For overseas kids, it's always interesting because they're always excited about coming to the States. And they do their research. So they know who you are and they know pretty much every program there is over here, and they get excited. And so the opportunity to come over here, the biggest thing for them is academics. They want to go to a school where they're going to get a good education more than anything. But, they also have those aspirations in basketball. But academics is number one, especially with their parents, but the kid as well.
Zane Knowles was a huge academic guy. I remember being down there, a huge academic guy.
I mean, it's funny you say that because it's like even like coaching where I am now. It's like we had 2 kids last year because we had to send a coach at St. Benedict's Prep where the standard is about 7 Division I kids a year that we have on the team, and we have 2 kids stuck in Sweden right now. Like they went back to Sweden. The government won't let them out. And he was going to sign. One of them was going to sign with New Mexico. Didn't. The other one was going to sign with another school. Didn't. So they're just sitting there right now. It's like, and that will backlog into, as you say, 2021, 2022. The kids who should be in college right now just aren't.
Yeah, exactly.
Coach,
a lot of those kids get excited because they don't have access to a gym like they would over here.
Yeah.
Our field house is open 24/7 to our guys. Over there, they have a hard time just finding a gym to get in to work out.
Exactly.
Coach, if the NCAA expands rosters and says you can carry 2 additional scholarships, is that something that's been discussed within the athletic department about doing? Is it obviously that costs more money because you're having 2 additional scholarship kids on the roster? Is that something? And obviously you're at some of the smaller programs. I've been told that's absolutely not the case. They won't do that at all, even though the NCAA may allow it. They just can't afford to do it. Who do you think that benefits the most in the NCAA?
That's a good question, Josh. I know it's obviously come up between our administration, our athletic directors and associate athletic and our coaches. I don't think there's been any final, decision on how we could handle that. But I can see where that would affect a lot of schools and just won't be able to do so, I think it's going to be a case-by-case, school-by-school deal, and the people that it benefits would probably be the schools that have the most money.
Sure.
And the most resources to do so, and they can redshirt some kids and stockpile their roster a little bit.
I would agree to that. Coach, one of the things that I always found with wearing a mask has been very difficult is to communicate with these guys. I have a mask that just got made up that says, "Read my shoulders." Okay. What do you mean? What do you mean it's not my fault? Figure it out. Like you can't read my lips anymore. Well, read my shoulders.
Yeah.
How much have players said to you, Coach? The mask, I can't hear you. Or how have you guys basically gone about communicating with the players in game, in practice? How has that been different?
For us, it really hasn't been too bad. I mean, you occasionally get, Coach, I didn't hear that. Can you speak up type thing. Never in a situation that was critical or anything. Or like the other day we were on the free throw line and, I called one of the players over to remind the rest of them, what press offense we were going to be in. And the point guard said, I can't hear what you're saying. And I had to just speak louder and he got it, and actually I just gave him the call. And as soon as I gave him the call, he knew what I was talking about. So we haven't had too much of that. I think it happens. I think sometimes it can be an excuse, I'm sure. But for the most part, we haven't had too many issues like that. But I'm sure it is hard to hear sometimes and it's hard to understand through the mask occasionally.
So let's dive in maybe a little bit different, more basketball related. Me being a Southland Conference guy here. What are you expecting this year in Southland? Like, who was the preseason favorite? Who's the preseason favorite this year? I forgot off the top of my head. Is it
Well,
Stephen F?
I'll start with what I expect. I'm hoping and expect to get to the season and get through
Yeah.
the season. Stephen F. Austin was favored, pick number one, not by too many votes over Abilene Christian, who I think, Stephen F. Austin is always a perennial favorite. And Abilene Christian is a very good basketball team and has been, I've always admired the way they've done it. They built it from the bottom up in terms of sticking with freshmen and those guys sticking with them and working through the years of inexperience and youth and to get to the point where they are now. And I think they've just done a terrific job, obviously. And that's to take nothing away from some of the other schools that, in the league at the top of the conference. But I think those two teams are probably, at the top right now. I know they were picked 1-2, but I think there's some other teams to keep an eye on. And you know how the Southland is. You played in it, teams that were picked to win it, have things happen to them, and they finish down near the bottom and are in the middle. And there's always a team that was picked at the bottom that ends up kind of making a run at you. Either like New Orleans a few years ago was picked around 9th or 10th and comes all the way back and wins the league. So I mean, there's always the one or two surprises, and there's always the guys who hold their own and stay at the top. But Sam Houston State will be pretty good this year. I think Nichols has a chance to be good. Lamar is expected to make some noise this year, and just kind of goes down the list from there. But I think it's going to be a very competitive with a lot of parity, and it really is going to come down to COVID and injuries, as you know, and who's still standing at the end.
Well, from your perspective, I'll give my own opinion of this after. What is the hardest place to play in the Southland and why? Because there's a lot of different dynamics that go into this. Because sometimes there's not. You don't have to say it, but from my personal perspective as a player, some of the hardest places to play in the Southland might have to do with the fact that there is no real fan base, and it's like this year where it'll be a little more normal, where you're used to fans. It's like the empty gym. So in a normal year, for you, what's the hardest place to play in the Southland? Like, if it's not just maybe the best team. Like on the road.
I think you make a good point. Sometimes it's hard to play there just because there's no one there, and then other times it's hard to play there because it's packed.
Yeah.
If you're talking about places you got to get up to on your own, sometimes New Orleans can be. It's a long travel to get there. And their fan base has increased. Coach Schlesinger has done a great job. There's times where you go there and there's just nobody there, and it's kind of like it's going to be like it is now, where there's just not many fans anywhere. But it's hard to play those guys. They play so hard. They're physical. They compete, and they're always so talented. So it's always a hard place to play. But Stephen F. Austin, when they're doing what they're supposed to be doing, and the place is packed, and they're on top of you, and like even last year, we're winning the whole game, and they make a run and cut it to 1, and it wasn't as packed as normal, but yet it was pretty packed, and I mean, you feel the heat coming down from the upper decks as they cut it to 1. Like, well, this is where they're just going to come on and take over the game and win. We were fortunate enough to pull off the victory down the stretch, but that makes it tough to play there as well. And Sam kind of has that same
like pit,
same buildings, format and everything. And when they're winning and their crowd comes out, that's a tough place to play too.
Coach, are fans allowed to be in the stands in Southland arenas? Are they allowed to be?
It's limited. It's limited right now. I'm sure it'll depend on where COVID goes. If it keeps going up, goes down. But I think it'll probably be limited throughout the entire year, and hopefully it'll never get to a point where we just can't have any fans.
I mean, we really hope that doesn't. I mean, but
No, it's been interesting, Coach.
Yeah.
One of the things I have to ask about is your athletic department as a whole. Are they getting tested? Not only just the players, staff, but the members in like compliance, the athletic director, other people that help make up the athletic department as a whole. Are they getting tested 3 times a week as well, or is it just staff and players that are tied to teams?
I don't have the answer to that. I don't believe they're getting tested 3 times a week. I know they're getting tested. Our athletic director and all the people that are doing the traveling are getting tested more than others. But in terms of like compliance, who's still here, and some of the people that aren't leaving campus or coming around us or around the sporting teams as much, I can't say how many times they're getting tested, but I know they've been tested.
Is travel normally? Sometimes I know the guys that get on the bus, sometimes they sit next to one another. Is it like every other seat now? Is it kind of, do you have to space out? Obviously, with a basketball team is a lot different than a football team because you have less guys and there's more seats, but you still have, I've been on teams where you take enough people and man, you can almost fill up every seat. So is that different now?
Not really. It's hard to do because our travel party is fairly big. Our travel party's been cut down.
Okay.
But you're still pretty much at least one person into every side of the row. So you have your own 2 seats on your side of the row, and everybody still has to wear their mask on the bus. And I know our bus driver, Melina, I think she was probably our bus driver when you were with us, Josh, too. She disinfects the bus nonstop as we get in and out, and make sure that it's been disinfected and cleaned and wiped down every time we get on and off the bus.
Well, that's great. Are your guys going home for Christmas? Because one of the things that I know coaches have had major concerns about when they leave campus, mom and dad, the cousins, the aunts, are your guys allowed to go home for Christmas?
As of right now, there's no plans of anybody going home for Christmas. The schedule doesn't work out that way for us. And now if you go out right now, I think if you go out of state or fly, when you come back, there's such a limit on the number of days you have to sit out and quarantine when you get back and then get tested and wait for the result that when you get back, you could miss a game or 2. So we'll probably stay here and bubble and celebrate those things safely together.
We're all making adjustments and sacrifices this year to hopefully get through this. Coach, obviously, the vaccine's starting to become more available. I know it sounds selfish, but athletics are a huge part of where we are, and they make up the day-to-day. Is there talk? Are players interested in getting the vaccine? Have they talked about it? Have you as staff talked about it?
I guess we really haven't had too much of a conversation with it. I haven't talked to too many players about it. I know everybody says, yeah, we're close to getting one, but I think they're really more waiting to find out when that's actually going to happen rather than who's getting it first, and I'm sure I agree with the majority of people that those people that are putting themselves on the lines obviously need to be first, and when they get to us, we'll be grateful. But we want to make sure that whatever it is we're getting, is something that will work and is safe. And when that time comes, I'm sure everybody will embrace the opportunity to get the vaccine to stay healthy.
Coach, some of the teams have a, alternative. Okay, this game we're supposed to play isn't working out. Do you guys have a plan B set in place where, hey, we're calling this team, okay, and see if we can get that game back? Is that kind of in place? I've heard from other schools it's kind of like the unwritten rule or the unwritten plan, the audible, they basically are calling it. Yeah. You guys have something like that where you have 4 or 5 teams stashed away that you've kind of agreed to that said, hey, yeah, we'll do it?
I don't know if we have the audible or 4 or 5 teams stashed away, but I will say this, that hopefully we don't have to do that. And if something like that happens, there's an opportunity to make some games up or with fill-in games or play the same team at another date. But we've been getting flooded with calls from teams who missed games looking for games. So if that continues to happen and the opportunity presents itself, we feel like there's many teams out there looking for games, that they've had to miss and have open dates. But we don't necessarily have those 5 teams sitting on sitting on a list, and if something happens, we're gonna, we have them lined up.
And I know the athletic department, you and Coach Willis are saying, okay, boys, you want to play us? You got to pay us. Open that wallet, baby.
Yeah.
There's no problem, Kentucky. We'll be right there. Coach,
these days and times, schools are needing the help, all the help they can get. So if those opportunities present themselves, I'm sure there'll be discussions too.
Are there restrictions by playing? Obviously, you're going to be playing outside the state in your own conference. Have there been restrictions discussed about doing that as well when you come back?
The biggest things have been how to go about getting there and how about getting back. And so far, we've tried to develop routes of not flying.
Okay.
So, do we stay on the road in between a certain game and risk the hotels over getting on a plane and flying somewhere or flying back? Like, for example, coming back from New Orleans, we've done this before because there was an ice storm, believe it or not, in New Orleans. Josh, I don't know if you were with us then or not.
No.
But we ended up having to drive back the next day from New Orleans, which is a hefty trip, in a bus, especially with icy roads. And then you got to turn around a day later and play. It would be kind of like we are right now. We played on the road the other night and then finished up and left Dallas at 10 o'clock at night and got back to campus at 4:30 in the morning to turn around and come back, get ready for a game tonight on the road, to turn around and go back again. So normally we would go the day before and stay in the city of the game tonight, but we don't want to risk another night in a hotel, or 2 nights in a hotel. We would have probably flown to our game a night ago, 2 nights ago, but we bussed it. So limiting the number of days in hotels, trying not to get on a plane, just for any chance of somebody getting exposed to COVID, to bring it to the team, to have us shut down for 10 to 14 days. Just, it makes it hard on these kids, and God bless them, but, they're fighting through their aches and pains and stiffness from sitting on bus for long periods of times. But to be healthy and still get to play means a lot more to them than convenience, I think, at this point.
So basically what you described, Coach, and you wouldn't know this, but I know this as a former player at Northwestern State, is not in the COVID year, just day-to-day travel at Northwestern State. We bus up to Missouri, we bus out to Texas Tech, so you're saying, and almost basically day of, basically you're kind of hinting that Northwestern State has a big advantage over everybody. So this is good as alumni. That I know that
Northwestern State has an advantage, but they're in a good place because they've got a terrific coach.
Yeah. I'm just joking.
Talented team.
So. I'm just kidding around, but that sounds like just my I always laughed because Coach McConaughey never liked to fly anywhere, and even when we made the NCAA tournament, whatever the plane was offered to him, and he said, "No, we'll bus out to Austin, Texas, whatever it is, 11, 12 hours. We'll go there. Doesn't matter."
Well, when you make the NCAA tournament, you're feeling pretty good. You're about to do anything they want you to do to get there, right?
Yeah, he turned down the plane, said, "Let's take the buses." We bus out to Texas Tech, bus out to Missouri but we loved it.
Well, you were winning, so it must.
Yeah, we were winning. We were winning. Hopefully, I brought this memento up here just because Coach wanted me to. Hopefully you can get one of these this year.
I see it.
Yeah,
the glare is a little. I couldn't quite hold it up again. I couldn't quite make it up from the glare.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Now I know what it is.
Yeah. South.
All those diamonds and stuff with the light made it hard to see. So
you see, what David doesn't realize is Coach McConaughey was saving money throughout the athletic
buy the rings.
So he could buy the rings. That's exactly what it is.
Exactly.
Coaches always have a reason for everything, so don't
And
question.
believe me, he'll remind you of it years later, and he's probably right most of the time.
He's the best.
No, he's a great guy.
Love Coach. He's truly the best. We've got some great coaches in this league, really good people, and great coaches, really good basketball minds, and do terrific jobs with the guys they have. So.
Well, Coach, I can't thank you enough for joining us today. I know you guys are in season, which makes it tough in scheduling, and we wish you all the best this year. David, it's always fun catching up with a friend, and obviously a program that I wish tremendous amount of success for. I know you still have your heart with the Demons, but
Of course.
the Islanders, I'll have to pull for the Islanders when they take on those guys. It'll be fun.
Exactly. Thank you so much for coming on with us today, Coach.
Yeah, thanks, guys. I really enjoyed it. Josh, it's always a pleasure. Stay in touch. I wish you guys all the best and stay safe.
Thanks, Coach. Dave, you want to take us out?
Yep, guys. And if you're still listening to us at this point, you guys can catch us podcast Changing of the Times on Apple iTunes Store, Google Play, Spotify, Anchor Podcast, pretty much anywhere you can download podcasts, you can listen to us. And until next time, thank you guys. This is Changing with the Times.